Are your Cincinnati Reds primed for a reunion with starting pitcher Sonny Gray? Well, we're going to tell you on today's Locked On Reds.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Reds. My name is Jeff Carr. His name is Steve Offenbaker, and we are lifelong Cincinnati Reds fans that have a little over 12 years of experience podcasting about the team. We are glad that you're alongside us here today and every day, all off-season long, as we get ready for 2025 and what should be a playoff year for your Cincinnati Reds. We're going to get you ready every single day for exactly what the Reds need to do as this offseason gets rolling. And on today's podcast, we're going to talk about the big rumor, Bob Nightingale, saying that the Reds are aggressively pursuing a trade for Sonny Gray. Also, we're going to look at the biggest offseason need for your Cincinnati Reds. It's not Sonny Gray. And we will then look at why the Reds cannot forget about the bullpen. That's all coming up with today's Locked On Reds podcast that is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your baseball rivals. Check out Booking.com, the number one accommodation site of Major League Baseball, or the Booking.com app. All right, Steve, where we're going to begin is with this rumor that the Reds really want to trade for Sonny Gray. And quite frankly, I don't want that.
No.
Listen, I don't get that.
The Reds were all in on Sonny Gray when he was a free agent. And if reports are true, and this came from Sonny Gray's mouth himself, the money was pretty much the same. The offer from the Reds was the same as what he got from the Cardinals. The Reds were very competitive. They really did want him back in Cincinnati. And according to Sonny, what it boiled down to is that his family wanted to be in St. Louis. He wanted to be in St. Louis. They didn't want to be in Cincinnati. And that's a big red flag for me right out of the gate, because if the player is unhappy and his family doesn't want to be in Cincinnati, that's going to lead to problems. Throw that out the window for a moment, Jeff, and let's just talk about the logistics and the nuts and bolts of the Cincinnati Reds trading for one of the better available pitchers on the market in division. And do we really want to consider trading away our prospect capital to a team in the division and then have to face the guys we trade away for 6 years before they move along? This whole thing sounds like a train wreck, and I don't know what to make of it other than maybe people are just looking to fill some off-season column inches. I don't know.
It's a little early in the off-season to be thinking
this is a bad idea. This is a bad idea.
It's a horrible idea. I want no part of this. I don't want to see the Reds do this. I want them to run away. There's got to be some options out there on the free agent market. There's got to be other trade options. But quite frankly, there's a couple of things here. The reason that Sonny Gray is perceived being available is that the St. Louis Cardinals had the dreaded press conference earlier this week where they said, we're cutting payroll. And as Reds fans, as much as we hate the Cardinals, we can at least empathize a little bit with how much those press conferences stink. And could the Reds take advantage of this? Maybe. But I don't foresee the Cardinals giving some sort of 75 cents on the dollar coupon for trading for Sonny Gray for a division team. That's just not going to happen. So you're going to have to trade full price. You're going to have to trade a decent prospect package. And this is for a guy that, for a moment there, he was in the Cy Young consideration in 2024, but he also dealt with injuries, which is the biggest concern with Sonny Gray, is that he's not going to be available for 30 starts a year. And if the Reds are going and getting a guy like this, then they need to be getting a guy that's going to be available for 30 starts a year. But let's take all of that out of the equation for the moment, because this Reds organization has set themselves up to be a draft and develop type of organization. Much as we want to say that, you got to do more than that, that's where they want to begin the conversation. The biggest thing that they're drafting and developing is pitching. They've gone all in on that the last couple of the drafts. Chase Barons, Rhett Lauder. You can go back to Nick Lodolo. They've done this thing where they're like, we're going to draft and develop pitching because it's hard to lure free agent pitchers here. Sonny Gray, the most recent example of that. So why on earth are we going to now spend capital, prospect capital, to go acquire pitching, which is something you should already be training yourself for? I don't understand any sort of logic around this rumor, and it should not happen.
No, can you imagine Cam Collier in a Cardinals jersey for 6 years, or Chase Petty, Chase Burns? Because this is where the conversation is going to start.
Sorry, that was just an act. I didn't do
that. If Nick Krall picks up the phone and says to St. Louis, yeah, Sonny Gray, the first words out of their mouth are going to be Cam Collier. Going to be Chase
as
Burns.
well it should. Yeah.
And that should be. And that's going to be just the beginning of the ask. So this is a non-starter for me, Jeff, but it doesn't mean I don't think they should go out and get a starting pitcher, because I do think they should go out and get a starting pitcher. And I would much rather see them just go sign a fifth guy in the free agent.
And that's the thing too, is that, you know, it'd be good to sign another big time dude to add to Hunter Green at the top of this rotation. But the capital that you'll need to spend on that, and especially the trade capital, it's just not worth it for Sonny Gray. If you can maybe get a free agent and get him to come to Great American Ballpark and become a part of this playoff, hopefully, roster in 2025, then that's the way you need to go. But more than likely, what they're going to get is a guy that's more of a middle of the rotation to a back end of the rotation type of dude that's going to bring stability every fifth day. And could that be Nick Martinez? Maybe. But even if it's Nick Martinez...
That's just what I was going to ask you. Based on the conversations we had earlier this week, if the Reds move for a fifth starter was this, let me bear with me. Let me present this scenario to you. Nick Martinez and Scott Boras opt out of their player option. I see that happening. But the Reds come right back in and sign Nick Martinez to be kind of the same guy he was in 2024 and 2025. You tell him he's competing for a starting job. You let him and Graham Ashcraft battle it out for the fifth starting job out of Goodyear. You assume Nick Martinez wins that battle. Nick Martinez is your fifth guy, and then you wait for a Chase Burns, Chase Petty to be ready to come up and take it away from him, and you put him back in the bullpen as the long man, swing man, emergency starter kind of guy. Would that satisfy the requirement in your mind, my mind, that they have to go get a fifth starter? Because it would for me.
I think so. I think it would be more of a compromise than it would be the ideal scenario, because I would hope that maybe there's another guy that they add in there with that. The only issue that I have with it just being Nick Martinez is that that's what they had this past year. And we ran into a scenario where he was the ace because everyone else was hurt. And I just feel like the depth of the starting pitching got really decimated last year with Connor Phillips just losing his mind and not being able to throw a strike for a long period of time. Lyon Richardson being moved to the bullpen in AAA. We saw Carson Spires. I don't know that we want to see him for an extended period of time next year. I'm not really sure that Chase Burns is going to be ready to go early on this season, so you're going to need somebody that you can definitely count on, period, and then hopefully Chase Burns takes it from a guy that gets hurt or something like that. You need 6, 7, 8, 9 starters for the year, so I don't want them to just think that Nick Martinez is it. But I think I would be okay if that were the key move, and maybe you sign some of the guys to like veteran minimums or something like that. I think that could work.
Okay. I'm good. I would be good with it, Jeff, because I no longer view Nick Martinez, as this multitasking multitasking spare part. I think he's earned the right to be signed as the fifth starter. And then if one of the young bucks takes it away from him, well, that's just baseball, baby. You got to go back to the bullpen. But I think in his 16 starts this year, he's demonstrated that he can be a quality fifth starter on this team. And I know I get what you're saying about, well, you need him and the depth, but I think he's opting out. So you're going and getting him off the free agent market anyway. This is not a hold what you got, because he's not going to be here. They're going to have to go get him again. So I think I would like that move. I think I would be okay with it.
Yeah. And you're probably, if you are going and getting him, you're going to have to sell him on the fact that he is the fifth starter, or he's in this rotation on opening day. And it's not the same. I don't think you get him for the same scenario as last year, where it's like, you got to prove that you're a starter. Like, he's going to be like, but I am. I proved it to you last year, so sign me as a starter. That's what you're signing me for. You're not signing me for a swingman contract anymore. It's as a starting pitcher.
What's that look like? What, 2 years, $35 million? Does that get it done?
It's definitely a raise. He made $16 million in 2024. I'm guessing no
12
less.
His player
no
option's
less than 18.
12.
I would
right?
say 36. Yeah, 32
his
player option.
Player option's 12 million. Is that right? So
yes, and that's why he's dropping.
Opt out, re-sign for $5 million more a year to be the fifth starter.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that getting it done. And no, I'm with you. That's a key need. Starting pitching depth is a key need this offseason. But it's not the top need. We'll tell you what the top need is coming up next.
This episode of Locked On Reds is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah, with the baseball playoffs upon us, it's perfect time for you to go explore one of those playoff cities that you've always secretly kind of wanted to visit and learn about. And Booking.com has you covered with hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com. You just might find your perfect stay, even if it's in a city that you're not normally watching baseball in. If you want to check out the Phillies, if you want to check out one of these baseball powerhouses, maybe head to New York and check out the Yankees, Booking.com is going to have you covered. From hotels that look over stadiums to family-friendly resorts, Booking.com has so many choices across the United States for your baseball playoff travel this MLB postseason. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even one of the playoff teams that are lucky enough to be in the show, and the Reds are not. Book your stay today at Booking.com, or you can download the Booking.com app. We're talking Reds baseball here today and every day, every week, every month, all year long. Make sure you subscribe, click the like button, click that notification bell. Take us with you on the road. We are available in all of the podcasting audio feeds, wherever you get your podcasts. We want to talk Reds baseball with you, and tell your friends and family. We want to talk Reds baseball with them as well. All right, Jeff, starting pitching is a need. A fifth starter is definitely a need. But it's not the biggest need, and the biggest need remains the need that's been the need for 2 years now. They need a right-handed, power-hitting outfielder that already knows how to play in the frickin' outfield.
Just give me an everyday outfielder. I'm tired of the platoon. Like, I get it. I've been the one. I've been the one that stands on the table and says, look, this is the way of the game now. This is how the Dodgers operate. This is how the Phillies operate. There's guys that are platooning and things like this. Get me an everyday outfielder. And quite frankly, I think a win, a big win for the team this offseason is that they get an everyday outfielder and a very, very awesome platoon guy that goes with Jake Fraley, so that you can have an outfielder of everyday outfielder, TJ Friedl in center field, platoon of Fraley and right-handed guy in right field, and then you move Spencer Steer to first base. Because then you open up the possibility of letting CES grow into whatever role he's going to eventually grow into, instead of shoehorning him into this role once he's healthy. You open up yourself the possibility of having a defensively capable outfield, which we haven't seen in a long time. You open yourself up to so many possibilities if you sign multiple outfielders, but dear God, Steve, just give me one guy. I don't want to see Will Benson in the major leagues to begin next year. I don't want to see re-signs in the major leagues to begin the season next year. And as much as I was a little hot takey about some lineups and said things, I don't want to see Joey Wiemer in the major leagues next year. We need to get some dudes off the free agent list, and maybe this rumored trade capital that they're possibly offering to St. Louis for Sonny Gray, go offer that for an outfielder, because you're probably going to get yourself somebody that's more impactful than Sonny Gray.
Yeah, I want Nick Craw all in on Anthony Santander. I want his 44 home runs and 102 RBIs to play at Great American Ballpark. I want that 506 slugging percentage in a corner outfield spot for the Cincinnati Reds, day in and day out. No, by the way, he is a switch freaking hitter. He will play every day.
He could hit 50 the guy. Here. He could hit.
That 50. Is the guy. He could hit 50 for sure. 100%. That's the guy. That's the target. That's the dude. I want Nick Krall on the phone the second he is allowed to be on the phone with Santander's representation, and I want him to get it done. That is my guy. That is the dude. It's not going to be Juan Soto, and I know that for all the reasons you said they could do it, they are capable of doing it. Number one, it takes two to tango, and this might not be the market that he necessarily wants. And number two, while they could, they're not going to. So
well, he's friends with Ellie.
He is friends with Ellie, and that Juan Soto is going to be one of those dudes where Nick Krall picks up the phone, calls his agent, and then leaks it that, well, we had conversations. That's going to be the extent of the Reds being in on Juan Soto. Santander, on the other hand, Santander could be the guy. So instead of wasting time and energy anywhere else, go get this dude. Go get this dude, trade for another dude, exactly like you're saying, overhaul this outfield. Then I would be fine with TJ Friedl still being your everyday center fielder, batting lower in the lineup, and then maybe he catches lightning in a bottle if he's healthy again. But upgrade the corners, get Spencer Steer on the infield. Let's do this thing. It is not rocket science. The answer is right there.
And maybe you go trade for Lawrence Butler from Oakland. I know I was the guy that was saying go trade with Oakland to get Brent Rooker, but I kind of think you need an outfielder, and Lawrence Butler is definitely a better outfielder defensively than Brent Rooker is. And we saw what Lawrence Butler can do at Great American Ballpark when he basically single-handedly led the Oakland A's to a winning series against the Reds.
So
there in August.
Butler bats left-handed. I haven't looked at his splits, but I will tell you, but he throws right-handed, bats left. I will tell you that he was 31% above league average. His OPS plus was 131. He hit 22 home runs, 57 RBIs, stole 18 bases. So he at Great American Ballpark, definitely another 2020 guy. This roster could be full of 2020 guys next season. This is not a bad pickup, Jeff. Just giving it a cursory look right now, it could work in the Reds' favor.
I don't know that it would take the farm to get him. Like, you could trade a couple of young guys, a couple of lower level prospects that are a few years away. We've had conversations with Sully over at Locked On A's. He was filling in for Locked On A's for a bit. We've had conversations about the A's and how they are still looking well into the future. It's not as if they're trying to compete right away, but you could get a small pack. I think it could work.
So he bats left-handed, Jeff, and he has reverse splits. Right-handed against righties, against right-handed pitchers. He's 245, 301, 456. Against lefties, 271, 297, 458. So slightly higher slugging, much higher batting average, and just a little dip in on-base percentage. So he, again, could play every day.
I would love to see. You don't even have to do an overhaul. I talked about earlier in the season that maybe they need to overhaul the outfield next year. Jake Fraley could still be a part of this team. TJ Friedl could still be a part of this team, but go get yourself two more guys and then make it a conversation on who the fifth outfielder is. Do you need a fifth outfielder? What's that look like? Is it Spencer Steer as the super utility guy as your fifth outfielder? Like, how does that all look? Open it up, because I think Spencer Steer wants to be that guy that moves around, and maybe he just becomes your everyday first baseman, but don't make him your everyday left fielder. I don't know that he ever becomes a solid fielder in left field. Give me a solid fielder and keep Spencer Steer's bat in the lineup.
Yeah, he's much better on the infield. And, and we've talked about this at some point in time, they may have to trade somebody like a Jonathan India for a piece, and Spencer Steer becomes your second base. So I'm not opposed to Lawrence Butler. I think that's a great idea. Santander is my number one free agent target. I'm going to be saying it until he signs with somebody else. The Reds should be talking to his representation every single day from the day they are able to.
Let me stop you right there. He's not going to sign with somebody. He's going to sign with us. It's going to happen.
I preach it into existence. Preach it into existence, because that is my guy. That is my number one free agent target in the offseason.
But even though the outfield is the biggest need, can't forget about the bullpen. There's got to be a couple of moves there. We'll talk about what they should be coming up next. Hey, football fans, you can start the season off with a big return over on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game and you can check out the latest stats, you can also view live play-by-play and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. In fact, for your first $5 bet, you could look back at baseball. You could look at the playoffs because the two favorites to win the World Series are both from the National League. Right now, you got the Dodgers and the Phillies on top with the Yankees right behind them. FanDuel has the Dodgers at plus 350 to win it all. The Phillies right behind them at plus 360. And then the Yankees are at plus 450. The crazy thing to me, though, is the Guardians, the other American League team that got a bye and doesn't have to play in the wild card round. Yeah, they're 11-1 to win the World Series. That seems a little bit intriguing to me. I might put a little bit on that. That's over at FanDuel.com.
The best way to enhance your football watching experience is with Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Now that we're in the baseball offseason and the NFL is heating up, it is so easy to use Prize Picks to get your fantasy sports fix. That is right. All you need is as little as 4 correct picks on an entry, and you could turn $10 into $1,000 with Prize Picks. All you need to do is pick your favorite players like Joe Burrow or Jamar Chase, and then find your favorite stats and click more or less. So completions for Joe Burrow, you think he's going to complete a lot of passes? Click more. Jamar Chase, you think he's going to have several touchdowns? Take that stat, click more. You think they're not going to do those things? You can always click less, but stop being a pessimist. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB, and you're going to get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even have to win. This helps Jeff Carr out. You don't even have to win to get the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. If you haven't done so, sorry, was it me or you? My bad. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and click that like button, click that subscribe button, click that notification bell, jump over to your audio podcast favorite platform. When this is done, subscribe to us there. Take us on the road with you. We want to talk baseball with you all off season long. All right, Jeff, sorry I stumped your break there. I couldn't keep track of who was supposed to go. So we've talked about Sonny Gray. We've talked about the need for a fifth starter. We've talked about our #1 offseason free agent target and what we believe to be the biggest need, the outfield. But while it was good and while it was great at times, the work is not finished in the Cincinnati Reds bullpen. There is room for improvement, and there is some work to be done. The guy that I identified in an episode earlier this week as being the bullpen arm of the year, so to speak, Buck Farmer, is heading back to free agency. They're going to have to replace him. They're going to have to go get a little bit more help for this bullpen for 2025.
Yeah, and I think that there's kind of a baseline with this. It's tough to like really nail down a specific relief pitcher just because relief pitching is a very fickle thing. One dude might not be as good as he was one year to the next, but there's definitely some names that are out there that have a nice experienced career that you can add into this. I think that the bullpen is an area where it's nice to break in young pitchers, but it's also good to have experienced guys that can really nail down the late innings. And while the Reds have gotten some good innings in the past couple of years out of guys like Fernando Cruz and Tony Santander, I don't want those guys being the main pitchers. Now, guys who are definitely returning next year for this bullpen will be Alexis Diaz. Emilio Pagan is going to be here. He's got a multi-year control. You're going to see Sam Maul. He's under arbitration control. He'll be back next year as well. Hopefully, these guys will be healthy too. Ian Jabot also under team control. We should see him back, but there's gonna be at least 1 or 2 guys that the Reds need to add to really make us feel confident that this bullpen can get it done next year. And as much as I think that Graham Ashcraft can be an elite guy at the back end of the bullpen, I kind of want a proven guy that's going to also help back there as well.
Yeah, I think that you have to look for upgrades. And,
Yes.
you rattled off the list there. Obviously, again, it's Alexis Diaz for sure is going to be back. Sam Mull for sure is going to be back. Brent Suter is under contract. He will be back. Emilio Pagan will be back. Tony Santillan will be back. And Ian Jabot will be back. That's 6 guys, right? And we're looking at basically there's 2 slots left to fill in order to get to your 13 pitchers.
I'm sorry, I'm incorrect about Pagan. He is a player option, but a player option for the same amount
he's
making
going
this year.
He's going to be back. He's going to be back after the year that he had. He's going to be back. I think realistically, there's 2 spots to fill. You have to ask yourself, do you want to give one of those spots back to Buck Farmer if he's around the same money, if they can bring him back? Is that one of the guys you bring back? I would not. I guess I wouldn't be upset if they brought Buck Farmer back on another 1-year deal. I guess I would be okay with that. But for the other spot to fill, I really would like to see them go outside the organization, go to the free agent market, and find somebody that's considered more of a back end of the bullpen type. And then you have some options. Then maybe if you go get that guy, and then maybe you don't bring Buck Farmer back because that second spot in the bullpen may need to be for a Graham Ashcraft or Nick Martinez or another long arm kind of guy, depending on how the rest of this shakes out. So.
Well, and Jacob Junis, he has a player option for $7 million next year, so that could be something. He could pick that up. I'm curious to see exactly what they could do with some of these guys. There are some names out here that have some great experience, and while I kind of want to dive into those more before we really start saying some names, I just think that there's an opportunity because. It's something that I think we get a little married to the guys that we watch every year. Bullpen guys, maybe not so much because we get mad at them for blowing games, but the Reds are definitely a very loyal organization. They should take a page out of what the Dodgers do. The Dodgers, while the Dodgers spend a lot more than the Reds ever will on a roster, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the Dodgers have had just crazy bullpen turnover. They've got guys that have only pitched for them for like 1 year, guys that pitched for them for a couple of years, but like they let Kenley Jansen go a couple of years ago to Boston. They do not have any sort of loyalty to relief pitchers, but they constantly have a very good bullpen. So it's not as if you have to have continuity to be a good bullpen. Understand that and go into this offseason with the idea that you can improve. As much as we say that Buck Farmer was the best relief pitcher on this team, maybe the most consistent relief pitcher on this team, go get somebody better than that.
Yeah. And I don't know if you have the options up in front of you there, but maybe if you can get them while I make this point. There are guys with options in this bullpen right now, but if you're considering a stash of relief pitchers down in Louisville that you can rotate through, which is not a bad idea. But the guys with options that immediately come to mind are guys that aren't going to be sent down to Louisville. Alexis Diaz is not going to get sent down to Louisville. I don't anticipate Tony Santillan being sent back down to Louisville. So the questions are, is Ian Jabot have options? I don't believe that he does. He's either in the big league bullpen or he's not on this team anymore. Are you able to do something with Emilio Pagan? I don't believe so. I believe he's out of options and you either have to have him in this bullpen or cut him. So if you're looking at that list, Jeff, do you see any pitchers where they could stash them in Louisville, replace them with free agent signings, and have that bullpen depth for the 2025 season that may have been a little lacking this year, where we saw guys like Zulenta and Legomina and several other guys escaping me now. He was
guys that were up here to get battered, basically.
Yeah,
and
pretty
just
much. Lee Brandt. That's the name I was trying to come up with.
Yeah, Brandon Lee Brandt.
Brandon Lee Brandt.
Well, it starts with Fernando Cruz. Fernando Cruz does have some options that they could send him down to AAA. I'd be curious to see exactly what they do with him because he is not arbitration eligible until after next season. So he's still going to be pre-arbitration. They're going to be able to have him as depth, and that is kind of exciting to be able to say, look, we could start the year with him in AAA, and if somebody gets hurt, we actually have a pretty solid option. I think a lot of what he struggled with this year was just multi-year fatigue. As much as he has been used, I think he just hit a wall.
Well, and David Bell used him too much in the front half of the season. Just too much.
Like every day. Yeah. he was going to break. I mean, we were joking about the fact that they had doubled Ian Jabot's workload for the last couple of years. I think that David Bell was like, oh, I can't do that with Ian Jabot. All right, we're doing that with Cruz. He's going to get 150 appearances this year. Like, David, give the guy a break. But that's why he kind of hit a wall, and maybe he can be fresh legs for you where you don't even need to get him up into the big leagues until like June.
Yeah, I think that it would be important to have a little bit of depth stashed down there. I don't want to see another scenario play out where you've got guys coming to just get their teeth kicked in and then sending them back down. And that happened a lot this year. There was a lot of times where you would look at the transactions and know, all right, they're bringing that guy up because he hasn't pitched in a couple days and he's going to get his brains beat in, and then they're going to send him back down.
And you will have some depth in guys like Carson Spires, Lyon Richardson, who moved to the bullpen in AAA this year. You're going to see Zach Maxwell at some point, a guy who you and I could get a game used jersey of. There's going to be some guys like that who are ready to take the next step, but I don't want that to be the plan. I don't want Zach Maxwell to be the plan. Quite frankly, Steve, as much as we are saying this a lot right now, we're going to say it a lot this offseason, I don't necessarily want the plan to be Graham Ashcraft being a key back into the bullpen guy. Like, if you can go out and get two dudes off the free agent, I know we keep saying two dudes, like two outfielders, two bullpen guys, but if you can get two legit bullpen guys, this bullpen is going to continue to be the strength that it has been for the most part over the last 2 years.
Yeah, and I would consider Graham Ashcraft to be a bullpen addition if they go ahead and pull the trigger on putting him out in the bullpen. I think that's an upgrade. I think him being able to come out of the bullpen and pitch with maximum effort for an inning or two through six batters he'd be really good. So I would consider that a bullpen upgrade as well.
I would agree with that. I would like to see, like, just throwing a couple of names that I saw up there, like give me a Will Smith and a Carlos Estevez or something. You know, old friend Jeff Hoffman, he's going to be on the free agent list too. So maybe, no, not him.
Well,
anyway.
at least you have the jersey already. And that is where we're going to wrap up this edition of Locked On Reds. Thanks so much for making Locked On Reds your first listen every day. Everydayers, now go make the Locked On MLB podcast your second listen. Our buddy Paul Francis Sullivan, aka Sully, is going to have you covered all postseason long, all the way through the Fall Classic with his unique brand of humor and baseball knowledge. If you want to check out the Locked On MLB podcast, the link to it is down in the show description. You don't even need to search for it. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Jeff, get us out of here.
Thanks, everybody, for checking out Locked On Reds. Make sure you subscribe because all off-season long, we're going to be all in on the rumors, all in on the talk, all in on the transactions, all in on who the next Reds manager is going to be as we talk more about that on our next Locked On Reds podcast, because we are Locked On Reds every single day.
I bet you are so glad you saved that Jeff Hoffman jersey.
So glad.